The first bullet cracked past her ear before anyone had time to shout contact. Lieutenant Commander Eva Ramirez hit the dirt, the dry Afghan sand scraping her cheek as automatic fire stitched the air above her. The Humvee convoy had been crawling through Kandahar province, a route supposedly low risk. That intelligence had been wrong. Again. Ambush. Sergeant Cole barked, his voice hoarse from dust and adrenaline. He swung his M4 toward the tree line, squeezing off short bursts. The rest of the platoon dug behind rocks, hums, or whatever cover they could find as a wall of lead poured into them. Eva's heart slammed against her ribs. Her first thought wasn't fear, it was anger. She told command 3 times that this valley was too quiet for its own good. Silence in Afghanistan didn't mean peace. It meant waiting teeth. Ramirez. Private Wilson slid next to her, his young face pale. Orders? Her mind snapped into clarity. The bullets were still flying, but her voice was steady. Suppressing fire. 2 teams on the left flank, stay low. I'll take point. Radio for air if we can get through the jam. Wilson nodded, fumbling with the radio. The comms crackled but carried nothing. Jammed. Of course. Eva's hand tightened around her rifle. She was out here as part of an Army liaison unit, but the SEAL training never left her. That was something the young soldiers didn't know yet. She wasn't just another officer with polished boots. She was a SEAL team commander embedded for cross-branch operations. Command had insisted on secrecy, calling it interoperability exercises. The soldiers thought she was just another Army lieutenant with a sharp tongue. They'd mocked her behind her back, she knew. Too clean. Too short. Too female. Right now, none of that mattered. Right now, she was the only thing standing between them and slaughter. She peeked over the boulder, just long enough to count muzzle flashes. At least 20 insurgents, maybe more, dug into the ridge. Perfect kill zone positioning. If her unit stayed pinned, they'd be wiped out in minutes. Cole. Smoke out front. I want cover, she shouted. Yes, Cole yanked 2 canisters from his belt and lobbed them forward. Thick white smoke spilled into the air, billowing like a dirty curtain. Eva sprinted low, weaving between bursts of dust where rounds struck the earth. Her lungs burned, but her movements were calculated. Every step had a purpose. She slid behind a burnt-out tractor halfway up the incline. On me, she barked into her throat MIC, not caring if the line was jammed. Training had a way of pushing words into the ears that needed to hear them. 2 soldiers, Jenkins and Alvarez, scrambled after her. Fear painted their faces, but her steadiness kept them moving. Eva signaled, 2 fingers forward, palm flat. Advance slow. Suppress and move. The 3 of them surged upward through the smoke, weapons barking. Insurgent fire faltered as they pressed closer. The enemy had expected easy prey pinned to the valley floor, not soldiers clawing uphill with fury. Halfway up, Jenkins took a round in the vest and dropped with a grunt. Eva grabbed his collar, yanked him behind cover, and shoved his rifle back into his hands. You breathing? She demanded. Jenkins wheezed, nodding, still in the fight. That was enough. They pushed higher. Grenades arced over their heads, exploding in concussive thumps that showered dirt. Eva felt her ears ring, but she kept moving. She wasn't thinking about survival. She was thinking about angles, about momentum, about what needed to happen next to win. At the ridge, she dove flat, swung her rifle, and eliminated 2 insurgents who hadn't expected her this close. Alvarez covered the right, dropping another. The rest scattered in confusion. Eva roared, push. Push now. Down in the valley, Cole heard her and rallied the rest. The platoon surged forward, emboldened. Within minutes, the ambush collapsed into a chaotic firefight. Insurgents broke and ran. Silence returned, sudden and brutal. Only the ringing in their ears and the heavy panting of soldiers remained. The platoon gathered at the ridge, sweat streaking their dust-caked faces. Jenkins sat with his vest peeled open, the bullet flattened against the plate like a coin hammered by God. Lucky bastard, Alvarez muttered, giving him a shaky grin. Eva scanned the horizon, her pulse finally slowing. She wasn't smiling. She knew this was just the beginning. Ambushes like this weren't random. Someone had tipped the enemy about their route. Cole spat into the dirt, still catching his breath. We almost ate it back there. Eva looked at him, her gaze sharp. Almost doesn't count. We're alive because you fought like hell. That matters. Cole nodded, but his eyes searched hers. The way she'd led, the precision, the absolute lack of hesitation, this wasn't normal officer behavior. The seed of suspicion had been planted. That night, as the platoon hunkered in a makeshift camp, Eva sat apart, cleaning her rifle under a dim red light. The younger soldiers whispered nearby, voices carrying just enough. She moved like she's done this 1,000 times. Thought she was just some brass checking boxes. Hell no. Did you see her? She dragged Jenkins uphill like he weighed nothing. The whispers weren't mocking anymore. They were something closer to awe. Eva pretended not to hear. She dealt with doubt and ridicule for years, especially from men who assumed leadership meant height or volume. She didn't need their approval. She just needed them alive. Still, part of her couldn't help the small flicker of satisfaction. Before dawn, the radio crackled to life. Static, then a voice. "This is Falcon. We read your contact. Sitrep." Eva grabbed the handset. "This is Lieutenant Ramirez, Lima Platoon. Took heavy fire in Sector Delta. We neutralized ambush but sustained casualties. Requesting extraction priority." A pause. Then, "Copy that. Stand by." Her jaw tightened. Stand by always meant hours, maybe days. They were on their own. Cole approached, crouching beside her. "You think they'll hit us again?" Eva studied the valley stretching beyond. The mountains loomed, shadows sharp under the rising sun. "If they know we're here, they'll try again. And harder." Cole nodded grimly. "Guess we get ready then." By mid-morning, they moved out cautiously, every eye scanning ridges and gullies. No more jokes, no more casual chatter. The soldiers followed Eva's lead now without question. Every hand signal she gave rippled down the line like scripture. At a dry riverbed, they halted to rest. Wilson handed her a canteen, his hands still trembling. How do you know what to do back there? You didn't even flinch." Eva took a sip, letting the warm water ease the dust in her throat. She considered telling him the truth, that she'd flinched plenty, just not where it showed. Instead, she gave him the piece of truth that mattered. "You don't wait for fear to go away. You act while it's still there. That's the job." Wilson nodded, his young face hardening with respect. They pushed deeper into the province. Hours bled together. Heat gnawed at them. Every rustle of wind against brush set nerves on edge. When the second ambush came, it was worse. Rocket-propelled grenades slammed into the lead Humvee, flipping it like a toy. Flames roared skyward. The concussion knocked Eva flat, sand searing her lungs as she gasped. Screams cut through the chaos. "Medic!" someone howled. Insurgent fire poured in from two sides this time. A perfect L-shaped ambush. Eva shoved to her feet, ears ringing. Cole was already returning fire, shouting orders. But panic was spreading fast. Her instinct screamed. This was no ordinary ambush. It was coordinated, timed, meant to annihilate them. Whoever the insurgent commander was, he knew Western tactics well. Eva sprinted through gunfire to the overturned Humvee. Private Harris was trapped inside, his leg pinned. Flames licked closer. He clawed at the dirt, eyes wild. "Don't you leave me," he screamed. "I'm not going anywhere." Eva roared back. She braced, heaved against the wreckage, muscles straining until pain lit every nerve. The Humvee shifted just enough. Harris scrambled free. Together they rolled clear as the vehicle exploded behind them, the shockwave punching them into the ground. Eva staggered upright, dragging Harris toward cover. Bullets whipped past. She slammed her shoulder into a boulder and shoved Harris down. "Stay low and shoot straight." Then she turned back into the storm. Her platoon was breaking. Fear was winning. Eva charged into the open, weapon raised, and unleashed a barrage of fire that cut down two insurgents trying to flank. Her voice cut through the chaos like steel. "Rally on me. Push forward, don't fall back. On me." Something in her tone, unyielding, commanding, snapped the soldiers out of their panic. One by one, they rose, fighting back. The platoon surged as a unit, moving with her. The firefight dragged on, brutal and unrelenting. But under Eva's lead, the soldiers clawed their way through it, forcing the insurgents to withdraw once more. When the smoke cleared, bodies littered the field. The stench of burned fuel clung to the air. Harris wept quietly, clutching his mangled leg. Others sat slumped, eyes hollow. Eva stood in the center, chest heaving, her uniform scorched. She met their gazes. "We hold. We endure. We win. You got that?" They nodded, silent but resolute. Cole looked at her differently now. Not as an officer. Not even as a fellow soldier. As something harder, sharper. He said slowly, "Who the hell are you really?" Eva met his eyes. The secret she'd carried for years pressed at the edges of her silence. The truth would come out eventually. But not yet. Someone who's not going to let you die, she said. And the war rolled on. The smoke still lingered, thick and acrid, as the platoon tried to catch their breath. Burned rubber and diesel fuel mixed with the coppery tang of blood, coating every inhale with grit. No one spoke for several long minutes. The valley was silent, except for the crackle of the destroyed Humvee and the groans of the wounded. Lieutenant Commander Eva Ramirez stood at the edge of the wreckage, her rifle still warm, her body trembling from adrenaline. The fight had drained them, but it wasn't over. Not even close. She crouched beside Harris, whose leg was shredded below the knee. His face was gray, sweat beading on his forehead. "Stay with me, soldier," Eva said, her tone firm but calm. She wrapped a tourniquet high around his thigh, pulling tight until he screamed. I can't feel it," Harris gasped. "You don't need to feel it," she said, cinching the knot. "You just need to keep breathing." Corpsman Patel rushed over, dropping his pack. "I'll take it from here." Eva nodded, standing again. Her eyes swept the ridge lines. The insurgents had withdrawn, but she knew this wasn't a retreat. It was a reposition. Whoever was leading them was clever, testing their resilience, chipping away until the kill was clean. Cole approached, face set in hard lines. His uniform was scorched, and blood streaked across his arm, but his posture was steady. "We can't hold here. We're too exposed." "Agreed," Eva said. "But moving blind will get us cut down. They've got this sector mapped, probably funneled us here on purpose." Cole grimaced. "So what's the play?" Eva didn't answer immediately. She scanned the terrain again, her mind working angles, distances, probabilities. Every decision had weight now. "We move north," she finally said. "High ground along the ridge. If they want another shot, they'll have to climb into us. And we can signal Falcon for air support with line of sight." Cole hesitated. "North puts us closer to Taliban-held villages." "Exactly," Eva said. "Which means less open ground for ambushes. They want us on roads and valleys. I'm not giving them what they want." Her decisiveness shut down further debate. Cole gave a curt nod. "You heard her," he barked to the platoon. "Pack up, we move in 5. The march north was brutal. The Afghan sun baked them in silence, every step a battle against exhaustion. The wounded slowed them, Harris worst of all, carried on a makeshift stretcher by 2 soldiers. Every so often, the radio hissed with static but no usable signal. Whispers began again, different this time. Not ridicule. Not doubt. She dragged Harris out of a fireball. "She doesn't panic. Not once. She knew exactly how to flank those bastards." The platoon's perception of Eva was shifting, though no one dared say it directly. They'd mocked her before, but now they clung to her presence like a shield. Hours later, as dusk bled across the mountains, they reached the ridge. The elevation gave them a commanding view of the valley they'd crawled through. Smoke from the destroyed Humvee still coiled faintly in the distance. Eva ordered perimeter security and sent 2 scouts further up the trail. She stood at the edge, scanning with her binoculars. Movement. At first just shadows, then confirmation, a column of fighters weaving through the ravine below, at least 30 strong. Heavily armed. And worse, organized. Eva's stomach tightened. This wasn't a random Taliban cell. This was a trained unit. Cole came up beside her. "That's a damn platoon." "Looks like it," Eva said. "And they're not chasing. They're herding." Cole glanced at her sharply. "Herding us where?" Eva lowered the binoculars. "Into a kill box. They've been planning this for days, maybe weeks. We were just the unlucky ones to step into it." That night, the camp was tense. The soldiers ate in silence, nerves raw. The scouts reported more movement, enemy patrols circling. Eva sat with Cole by the dim glow of a red lens flashlight, studying a rough map. "They want us boxed in," she said. "That means their supply line is close. Commanders never push this hard without logistics nearby." Cole rubbed his jaw. "So what do we do? Sit here and wait for air?" "We hit their supply line," Eva said, voice cold with certainty. "We find their cache, burn it, and break their spine. Otherwise, they'll grind us until we're nothing but names on a memorial wall." Cole exhaled slowly. "That's suicide with the numbers they've got." Eva met his eyes. "So is waiting." Their gazes held. Finally, Cole nodded. "You're not Army, are you?" The question hung in the night air like a shot fired. Eva didn't answer. Not directly. Instead, she folded the map and said, "Get me 2 fire teams. Volunteers only. We move before dawn." Cole studied her, realization dawning. But he didn't press. Understood. Before dawn, 12 soldiers gathered, tired, wary, but resolute. Eva looked at each of them, her voice steady. "This is voluntary. What we're about to do isn't standard army procedure. If anyone wants to stay, now's the time." No one moved. Alvarez spat into the dirt. "After what you pulled yesterday, I'll follow you anywhere." A murmur of agreement rippled through the group. Eva nodded once. "Then we move quiet, we move fast, and we don't stop until we've cut their legs out from under them." The night trek was grueling. They moved like shadows across the rugged terrain, every step a whisper on the rocks. Eva led from the front, signaling silently, every motion precise. She'd done missions like this dozens of times before, but never with soldiers who didn't know what she truly was. An hour before sunrise, they spotted it. A hidden compound nestled into the hillside, sandbag walls, tarps stretched over ammo crates, vehicles parked under camouflage netting. The insurgent supply hub. Cole's jaw tightened. "Damn. You were right." Eva crouched, studying the layout. Guards paced lazily, assuming secrecy was enough. There were more fighters than her 12 could handle head-on. But Eva wasn't thinking head-on. "We split into 3 groups," she whispered. "Cole, take 4 and circle east, plant charges on their vehicles. Alvarez, you and 3 others hit the ammo crates, grenades, C4, anything that burns. I'll take the last group to cut the guards and set diversion." Cole frowned. "You're spreading us thin." Eva's eyes were hard. "We don't need to kill them all. We just need to cripple them. Fast in, fast out." Cole hesitated, then gave a grim smile. "Hell, I knew you weren't just another officer." Eva didn't reply. She just signaled, "Move." What followed was a blur of shadows and steel. Cole's team slipped around the east flank, planting charges under fuel trucks. Alvarez crept toward the ammo stacks, his men pulling pins from grenades with trembling hands. Eva led her 3 like a scalpel. She slid behind the first guard, blade flashing across his throat before he could gasp. Another fell with a muffled shot from her suppressed sidearm. The third barely turned before Eva's rifle dropped him. The compound stirred, sensing something wrong. Shouts rose. Lights flickered on. "Now!" Eva barked. Explosions ripped the night apart. Vehicles blossomed into fireballs. Ammo crates detonated, shockwaves shattering the compound. Fighters stumbled in chaos, blinded by flames and deafened by the roar. Eva's group poured fire into the confusion, cutting down stragglers. Cole's team charged back, smoke and fire lighting their path. "Move! Move!" Eva shouted, her voice slicing through the chaos. They sprinted into the darkness, flames behind them painting the sky red. The compound collapsed in fire and ruin, secondary explosions shaking the earth. By the time the insurgents regrouped, Eva's team was gone, ghosts swallowed by the mountains. They returned to camp at dawn, battered but alive. The rest of the platoon stared as they stumbled in, faces streaked with soot and exhaustion. Cole dropped onto a rock, panting, a grin splitting his face. "You should have seen it. We lit those bastards up like the 4th of July. Alvarez laughed, voice raw. Ammo was popping off like fireworks. The platoon's mood shifted, relief cutting through the fear. For the first time in days, hope sparked. Eva stood apart, silent, her eyes still on the horizon. She knew better. The insurgent commander wouldn't take this lightly. If anything, he'd come harder now, vengeance burning in his gut. Cole joined her, wiping sweat from his brow. "You know," he said quietly, "you're not fooling anyone anymore." Eva glanced at him. "You're no army lieutenant," Cole continued. "You lead like someone who's been through hell and came back meaner. The way you move, the way you fight, you're special forces, aren't you?" The truth sat heavy on her tongue. She could keep the secret. She could deflect again. But these men deserved more. "I was with SEAL Team 6, Eva said softly. "Now I'm here under orders. That's all I can say." Cole blinked, then gave a low whistle. "That explains a lot." His tone wasn't mocking. It was respect. Behind them, the soldiers began to piece it together. Whispers spread again, this time not in doubt, not in ridicule, but in reverence. "SEAL. Commander. No wonder she's alive." Eva didn't correct them. Let them whisper. Let them wonder. What mattered was simple, they trusted her now. But trust wouldn't keep them alive. That evening, Falcon finally radioed back, clearer this time. Lima platoon, be advised, intel suggests enemy forces massing west of your sector. We're working on QRF insertion, ETA 12 hours. Hold position until then. Eva gritted her teeth. 12 hours might as well be 12 years. She keyed the MIC copy, Falcon. Holding. Cole approached as she set the handset down. They're coming, aren't they? Eva looked at him, her face unreadable. Oh, they're coming. And we'll be ready. Her words carried calm, but in her chest, tension coiled tight. The enemy knew where they were. The trap was tightening. And when it snapped shut, only one side would walk away. The first shell landed just after midnight. It screamed out of the dark, hit the ridge 10 meters from their camp, and blew the night apart. Dirt and rock rained down, soldiers diving for cover. Shouts filled the darkness. Mortars. Cole bellowed, already dragging a wounded private behind a boulder. Eva Ramirez was on her feet before the echoes faded. Her SEAL instincts knew the rhythm of artillery. The first shell was never the last. Spread out, she roared. Don't cluster. Find cover, now. The second and third rounds slammed down in rapid succession, lighting the ridge in orange fire. Shrapnel whined across the rocks. Men screamed. The smell of burning flesh seared the air. Eva sprinted through chaos, pulling soldiers into crevices, flipping over an ammo crate to shield another. Every second counted. The fourth shell hit closer. Harris, the wounded soldier from earlier, cried out as dirt buried his stretcher. Eva threw herself onto the pile, clawing at the earth until she dragged him free. His eyes rolled in panic. They're trying to walk the fire onto us, Eva muttered, her mind racing. Spotters must be in the valley. Cole crawled to her side, face pale in the firelight. If they've got our position. They do, Eva cut him off. We can't sit still. Prep to move on my mark. The barrage lasted another 2 minutes, then stopped as suddenly as it began. The silence that followed was worse than the explosions. Why'd they stop? Wilson whispered, voice shaking. Eva didn't hesitate. Because they're coming. As if on cue, rifles cracked from below. Muzzle flashes flickered along the valley floor, a tide of gunfire rolling uphill. Dozens of insurgents advanced in disciplined lines, not wild charges. Whoever led them wasn't just another warlord. Eva's stomach tightened. She'd seen this kind of control before. Whoever commanded down there had training, serious training. Positions, she shouted. Return fire, controlled bursts. Don't waste rounds. The ridge lit up with answering fire. Soldiers braced their rifles against rocks, sending precise bursts down into the valley. Insurgents fell, but more pressed forward, using darkness and terrain to climb. Eva leaned out, sighted a fighter with an RPG, and dropped him with a clean shot before he could fire. She shifted instantly, hitting another who tried to drag the launcher forward. Her mind was calm, but her body burned with tension. Every decision meant life or death. Minutes stretched into an hour. The ridge became a fortress of desperation. Insurgents surged, were beaten back, surged again. The soldiers were running hot, ammo magazines emptying too fast. Down to last 3 mags. Alvarez yelled over the gunfire. Eva swore under her breath. They were burning through supplies quicker than resupply could ever reach them. If Falcon's QRF didn't arrive within the promised 12 hours, they were finished. Cole crawled over, face streaked with soot. They're pressing harder. We can't hold at this rate. Eva scanned the battlefield. The insurgents weren't reckless, they were probing. Testing weak points. Searching for the crack that would break everything open. We buy time, Eva said. Set fallback positions. Lad defense. We bleed them every step. Cole's grim smile was almost admiration. You really have done this before. Eva didn't answer. She had no space for pride. Only survival. By dawn, the battlefield was a graveyard. The ridge was blackened with soot, rocks scarred from mortar blasts. Dozens of insurgent bodies littered the slopes, but her own platoon was bleeding badly. Patel moved from soldier to soldier, hands red, eyes hollow. Harris had passed out from blood loss but still clung to life. Jenkins had taken shrapnel in the shoulder and was barely conscious. Eva walked among them, voice steady. You held. You fought like hell. That's what matters. Some nodded weakly. Others just stared, too drained to speak. Cole leaned against a rock, exhausted. They'll be back tonight. You know that. Eva nodded. And stronger. She lifted her binoculars, scanning the valley. Her gut clenched. A new column of fighters moved into position, reinforcements. Dozens more. This wasn't a ragtag force anymore. This was an army. By mid-morning, Falcon's radio update came through, but it wasn't what Eva needed. Lima platoon, QRF delayed. Weather grounding rotary assets. Hold position, 12 more hours minimum. 12 more hours. They barely had 12 more minutes of morale. Cole slammed his fist into the dirt. Goddamn it. We're not going to last 12 hours. Eva's voice cut in like a blade. We will. We don't have another choice. The platoon stared at her, waiting. Depending. And she gave them what they needed. We adapt. We make this ridge hell for anyone climbing it. Every trap, every choke point, every rock becomes a weapon. You understand? We don't give them an inch for free. Something sparked in their eyes. Not hope, exactly. But purpose. The next hours were spent digging in. They rolled boulders into choke points, laid out claymores, stacked ammo in central caches. Alvarez rigged makeshift tripwires with grenades. Cole coordinated overlapping fields of fire. Eva moved among them like a phantom, steady, calm, unyielding. Fear was contagious, but so was resolve. Wilson, hands trembling as he set a claymore, asked, what if they bring more mortars? Eva knelt beside him, voice quiet but sharp. Then we move. And we fight again. You don't think about the what ifs. You think about your next shot. That's all that matters. Wilson nodded, steadier now. Night fell, and with it, the enemy returned. Flares arced overhead, bathing the ridge in harsh white light. Insurgents surged again, shouting war cries, weapons blazing. This time, the platoon was ready. Claymores ripped the front ranks apart, explosions echoing like thunder. Rocks tumbled down choke points, crushing climbers. Every trap Eva had ordered bought precious seconds. She fought like a machine, rifle bucking against her shoulder, every shot precise. Cole was beside her, yelling orders, rallying soldiers when panic threatened to crack them. But the enemy kept coming. Wave after wave, relentless. An RPG screamed in and detonated near the perimeter. Wilson was thrown backward, blood spraying from his leg. Patel dove to him instantly, shouting for help. Eva gritted her teeth, firing until her rifle clicked empty. She slammed in a fresh mag, eyes burning. Hold! Hold the line, she shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. Hours dragged into eternity. By the third wave, ammo was nearly gone. By the fourth, they were fighting with knives, grenades, even rocks. Cole's voice was hoarse from shouting. We can't take another hit. We're done. Eva's answer was steel. Then we die standing. Something in her tone, unyielding, unafraid, ignited the soldiers again. Even bleeding, even broken, they refused to fall back. At the height of the chaos, Eva caught sight of a figure on the valley ridge. Tall, broad-shouldered, binoculars in hand. The commander. Their eyes met across the battlefield. Even at distance, she felt his presence. Calm. Calculated. Trained. And she knew then, this wasn't just Taliban. This was someone else. Someone with Western training. Someone like her. Her blood ran cold. By dawn, the attack ceased. Smoke clung to the ridge. The ground was littered with bodies. Her platoon, half-strength now, sat slumped against rocks, hollow-eyed, but alive. Eva wiped blood from her face, scanning the horizon again. The commander was gone. But his message was clear, I know you. And I'll break you. Cole limped to her side, his arm bandaged. We can't do this another night. Not like this. Eva's jaw tightened. We won't. She turned to the platoon, voice rising. They think they've got us cornered. They think we're finished. But we've hurt them. Bad. And when Falcon's birds get here, we'll finish the job. The soldiers straightened, weary but fierce. Cole studied her, eyes narrowing. You saw him, didn't you? The one running this circus. Eva nodded once. Cole exhaled. And? Her gaze was hard, haunted. He's not just some warlord. He's trained. Special. Someone who knows exactly how we think. Cole frowned. American. Eva didn't answer. The possibility sat heavy in the air. The mystery of the enemy commander gnawed at her. She didn't say it aloud, but she felt it in her bones. This was personal. That evening, the radio crackled again. Falcon's voice, crisp and urgent. Lima platoon, QRF en route. Hold position. ETA 2 hours. Relief washed through the soldiers. 2 hours more. Just 2. But Eva's instincts screamed. The enemy wouldn't let them walk away. Not after everything. She scanned the horizon, rifle tight in her grip. The mountains seemed to breathe, alive with unseen eyes. The final storm was coming. She could feel it. And somewhere in the valley below, the insurgent commander smiled, lowering his binoculars. He knew exactly who she was now. And he was waiting. The desert was not silent that night. Wind clawed across the barren plateau, flinging sand against rock in gritty whispers, while far off, too far to see but close enough to feel in the chest, mortars thundered. The sound came in irregular bursts, like a drunk giant pounding his fist on the table. The war never truly slept, and neither did the men and women who lived inside it. Commander Sarah Donovan sat on a slab of crumbling concrete in what had once been a schoolhouse, her rifle across her knees, and studied the map glowing on her tablet. The glowing grid lines painted her face in pale light. A red dot pulsed in the northeast corner, an enemy stronghold, verified by drones and scouts. That was their target. She listened to her team behind her. Ramirez was whispering a joke to Nguyen, something about camel spiders and the way they screamed when you cooked them. Nguyen snorted, nearly loud enough to draw attention, and muttered back a string of Spanish curses. Bishop, the quiet medic, was double-checking his packs with methodical precision. And Johnson, her sniper, was oiling his rifle, humming some off-key country tune. They all looked calm. But Sarah knew better. She'd led enough operations to recognize the subtle cues. Ramirez's too quick laughter, Nguyen's restless leg bouncing, Bishop's jaw clenched tighter than a vice. Even her own hands betrayed her, flexing and unflexing as if trying to crush the tension out of her bones. She cleared her throat. All right, SEALs. Here's the rundown. They leaned closer, the circle tightening around her tablet. The compound ahead isn't just another ammo dump. Intel says it's a relay hub, satellite uplink, encrypted comms, maybe even a regional command post. If we cut this artery, we choke their coordination across the valley. That means fewer ambushes on our convoys and fewer body bags on the flight home. Johnson gave a low whistle. So we're ripping out the brainstem. Exactly. Sarah tapped the screen, zooming in. But there's a catch. It's heavily guarded. At least 30 tangos, maybe more, plus fortified bunkers. We can't brute force it. We go quiet, we go surgical. Ramirez grinned like he'd been born for it. Silent but deadly. Just like my abuela's cooking. Even Bishop chuckled at that. Sarah allowed the humor to live for a moment. It was their shield as much as the Kevlar on their chests. Then she brought them back. Phase 1, approach under cover of darkness along the wadi. Phase 2, Johnson and Ramirez take the west tower, neutralize sentries. Phase 3, Nguyen and I breach from the east side, plant charges on the comms relay. Bishop floats between, ready to patch holes in whoever screws up. I never screw up, Ramirez said, puffing his chest. You did last week when you called me instead of commander, Sarah shot back. The team laughed, the kind of laugh that carried a hint of relief. Questions? She asked. Nguyen raised his hand lazily. Yeah. After we blow this thing, what's the exfil? Straight south or back through the wadi? Straight south. We've got a Chinook on standby if we clear the ridge in 30 minutes. That's a big if, Johnson muttered. Sarah met his eyes. Then don't miss. The march began just past midnight. They moved single file through the dry riverbed, shadows blending with the jagged walls. Above them, stars glittered cold and uncaring. Every crunch of boot against gravel sounded too loud. Every breath felt stolen. Halfway through, Ramirez whispered, Commander, you ever think about what you'll do when this is all over? Focus, she replied softly, not breaking stride. But in her chest, the question dug deep. What would she do? She'd lived in combat zones for over a decade. Her body was a patchwork of scars. Her mind was a gallery of ghosts. Could someone like her ever live quietly again? Buy groceries, mow a lawn, laugh without calculating the distance to the nearest exit? She pushed the thought aside. Thinking about tomorrow in the middle of tonight's mission was a surefire way to get everyone killed. They reached the ridge by 0200 hours. Below them stretched the enemy compound, floodlights sweeping, guards pacing, vehicles parked like teeth around the perimeter. The central tower blinked with red strobes, its dish angled toward the heavens. Johnson slid prone and peered through his scope. 2 in the tower. One's lazy, keeps scratching his ear. The other's wide awake, smoking. West wall's got another 4, doing lazy laps. If I time it right, I can drop 'em all before they know what hit. Sarah nodded. Do it. The first suppressed shot cracked like a muffled cough. One guard crumpled. Another shot, another body dropped. Ramirez whispered, "Beautiful." But then, just as Johnson lined up his third shot, a gust of wind whipped across the ridge, nudging his barrel ever so slightly. The round missed, pinging off metal. The compound erupted. Alarms howled. Floodlights pivoted like angry eyes. Shouts rang out in Arabic. "Move! Move!" Sarah barked. They sprinted downhill as bullets began stitching the earth around them. Dirt spat into their faces. Ramirez fired bursts to cover, yelling something Sarah couldn't catch. Johnson cursed, slamming another magazine. The plan had been silence. Now it was chaos. At the east wall, Sarah hurled a flashbang over the top and scaled it in one fluid motion. The explosion popped white and deafening, sending guards sprawling. She dropped inside, rifle up, cutting down 2 men before they could recover. Nguyen landed beside her, fast and ruthless, clearing the corner. Ramirez vaulted in next, grinning like a madman as he tossed another grenade into a bunker. The blast rocked the compound. Bishop scrambled last, already firing toward the tower. "Johnson, cover." "I'm on it." Johnson's voice cracked through comms. His shots silenced 2 more guards, but not before one sprayed wildly, a bullet grazing Ramirez's arm. "Son of a..." Ramirez cursed, clutching his sleeve. Blood seeped through. "Keep moving." Sarah snapped. "We don't have time." They pushed toward the central tower. Bullets screamed, ricocheting off concrete. Sarah's heart hammered, but her focus narrowed, doorways, angles, muzzle flashes. She was a machine built for this moment. Inside the tower, the air smelled of dust and hot wires. Screens glowed with streams of data. Sarah could almost hear the enemy's nervous chatter bleeding through the circuits. Nguyen slapped C4 against the relay equipment, his hands steady despite the chaos outside. "Timer set for 5 minutes. That gives us just enough to..." The door banged open. 3 militants stormed in. Sarah dropped one instantly. Ramirez, despite his bleeding arm, swung his rifle up and drilled another. The third lunged with a knife, slashing at Nguyen. The blade nicked Nguyen's vest strap, inches from his throat. Sarah's instinct screamed. She grabbed the man by his collar, slammed him against the wall, and drove her knife under his ribs. He wheezed, eyes wide, before collapsing. Nguyen swallowed hard. "Thanks, Commander." "Don't thank me yet. Plant's hot, move." They bolted out, gunfire chasing them. The compound was fully awake now, enemies pouring from barracks and bunkers like ants from a crushed nest. "Charges set." Nguyen shouted into comms. "Good," Sarah said, breathless. "South Ridge, go, go, go." The night became a blur of sprinting, ducking, firing. The ground shook as mortars thudded in pursuit. Bishop dragged Ramirez when his leg began to falter. Johnson provided covering fire with mechanical precision, every shot a heartbeat stolen from the enemy. Then, just as they cleared the outer fence, the charges blew. The tower erupted in a plume of fire and shrapnel. The dish crumpled like paper, sparks spraying against the night sky. The blast wave knocked them flat, ears ringing, lungs heaving. When Sarah lifted her head, she saw the compound burning behind them, the red dot erased from her map. Mission complete. But survival wasn't guaranteed yet. "South Ridge, double time," she barked. They stumbled uphill, half crawling, half dragging one another. Behind them, searchlights swept, bullets still peppering the dirt. Finally, at the crest, the roar of rotors thundered above. The Chinook loomed, its belly open like salvation itself. Crewmen waved frantically. "Move!" Sarah screamed, shoving Ramirez forward. One by one, they leapt inside, collapsing on the steel floor. Sarah was last, firing a final burst at the ridge before diving in. The ramp slammed shut. The helicopter lifted, blades hammering the air. Below, the compound shrank, its flames licking the horizon. Inside, the team slumped against the walls, sweat-soaked and bloody but alive. Ramirez winced as Bishop wrapped his arm. "Guess I'll get a badder scar out of this." "You already got too many," Nguyen said, shaking his head. "Your skin's like a damn patchwork quilt." "Quilts keep people warm, hermano." Ramirez grinned. Even Sarah laughed, just a short, tired sound, but real. Relief spread through her chest, heavy and fragile. Johnson leaned his head back. "Commander, that was close." Too close. Sarah nodded. Yeah. But we did it. And because we did, convoys tomorrow don't get ambushed. Soldiers don't get buried. That's worth it. The team fell quiet, letting her words settle. Outside, dawn began to creep along the horizon, painting the desert in shades of bruised purple and gold. Sarah watched it, her jaw tight. They'd survived another night. They'd won another battle. But she knew the war wasn't done. For every relay they cut, another sprouted. For every compound destroyed, 2 more dug into the sand. The silence in the helicopter wasn't peace, it was only the pause before the next storm. And Sarah Donovan, scarred and weary as she was, knew she'd march straight into it. Because that was who she was, the Chinook thundered across the horizon, carrying Sarah Donovan's SEAL team away from the burning relay hub. Inside, the team sat slumped and exhausted, the glow of victory dulled by fatigue. Bishop continued bandaging Ramirez's arm while Nguyen stared at the floor, lost in thought. Johnson had gone eerily quiet, staring at the rifle across his lap as though it had betrayed him. Sarah should have felt relief. They had struck a decisive blow, crippling the enemy's communication hub. But in her gut, unease churned. She'd fought long enough to know war never allowed clean wins. Every strike demanded an answer. And the enemy always answered. By the time they touched down at the forward operating base, the sky was streaked with pale orange. Dust kicked up in violent spirals as the Chinook's ramp lowered. Marines rushed forward to help unload gear and carry Ramirez to the med tent. Commander Donovan. Major Harris strode up, his square jaw locked tight. Hell of a show you put on last night. Satellite feed lit up like a Christmas tree. Relays gone, enemy chatter scrambled. Command's calling it a textbook op. Sarah adjusted her helmet, still coated in desert grit. Textbook doesn't usually include alarms going off halfway through. Harris allowed the faintest smirk. You adapted. That's what makes you dangerous. His smirk faded quickly. But don't get comfortable. Intel's lighting up. The enemy's pissed. Hard. They're mobilizing faster than we thought. Sarah felt her stomach sink. How bad? Bad enough. Drones spotted convoys pouring west out of the mountains. Trucks, technicals, maybe heavy weapons. They're not scattering, they're converging. Looks like they want payback. Nguyen cursed under his breath. Of course they do. Command wants you debriefed, rearmed, and ready, Harris said. We may not have more than a day before they hit us. And if they do, FOB Bravo is their first stop. Sarah exhaled slowly, her chest heavy. She glanced at her team, exhausted, blooded, barely held together. And now, they had less than 24 hours before the storm hit. The debrief was short, clinical, and unsatisfying. Sarah reported the op blow by blow, every decision and deviation. The officers nodded, typed, and congratulated. But none of that erased the bigger picture. Their strike had drawn fire. By mid-morning, the base was a hive of preparation. Barriers went up. Gunners checked belts of .50 cal ammo. Mortarmen cleaned tubes, eyes darting nervously to the mountains. Soldiers moved with the grim efficiency of men who'd seen enough death to know it was coming again. Sarah found her team near the motor pool, sitting in the shade of a Humvee. Bishop was stitching Ramirez's arm with thread that looked too thin for the wound. Johnson smoked a cigarette, his face hidden behind the haze. Nguyen tinkered with his rifle, though it didn't need tinkering. She approached and dropped to a crouch. All right. Listen up. You all did good last night. Damn good. But Harris is right, payback's coming. And when it does, this base is gonna be the anvil they slam against. That means we don't get to rest. Not yet. Ramirez winced as Bishop pulled the last stitch. You're saying we're about to be in the middle of a siege? Sarah nodded. That's exactly what I'm saying. Nguyen looked up, eyes sharp. Then we dig in. Make them bleed for every inch. Johnson exhaled smoke, finally speaking. We survived last night by luck. Luck doesn't hold forever. Sarah met his gaze. Luck had nothing to do with it. We survived because we adapted, and we don't quit. We'll do the same here. Johnson flicked the cigarette to the dirt. Hope you're right, Commander. That night, the first mortar landed. It came screaming from the dark sky, exploding just outside the wire. The shockwave rattled tents and shook dust loose from rafters. Sirens blared. Contact! Contact! Voices screamed across the FOB. Sarah was already running, helmet strapped, rifle slung. Her team followed, automatic, no hesitation despite exhaustion. Mortars rained in irregular bursts, shaking the earth, throwing fireballs into the night. Machine guns opened up on the perimeter, traces stitching red arcs across the desert. Shadows moved at the edges, figures sprinting low, firing wildly. Here they come. Ramirez shouted, dragging himself up onto a barrier, his arm bandaged but his weapon steady. The enemy charged like a tide, waves of fighters surging toward the FOB. Trucks mounted with DSHK machine guns spat fire. RPGs streaked overhead, slamming into the outer walls. Sarah's blood surged hot. This was no probing attack. This was full retaliation. Johnson. Tower 2. Ramirez, with him, she barked. Nguyen, Bishop, you're with me, east wall. They split instantly, each moving like parts of a living machine. Sarah vaulted sandbags, firing bursts into the mass of fighters. The night lit with chaos, muzzle flashes, explosions, screams. Nguyen dropped 2 men sprinting with RPGs. Bishop pulled a wounded Marine to cover, pressing gauze to his bleeding leg before snapping off shots at another wave. Sarah herself became a storm, rifle cracking, voice cutting through the madness, pulling Marines into tighter lines, forcing order into chaos. She was the center of gravity, the one point unshaken as the world burned. But the enemy kept coming. On the west side, Johnson lay prone in the tower, his scope dancing. He fired with icy precision, 1 round, 1 man down, again and again. But for every fighter that dropped, 3 more pressed forward. Ramirez manned the mounted .50 cal, its thunder drowning even the mortars. He whooped like a madman, ripping lines of fire through trucks and men alike. The weapon chewed the desert, but the barrel glowed hot and smoke choked the air. Keep it together. Johnson shouted, reloading. Never better. Ramirez yelled back, even as blood from his stitched arms soaked his sleeve again. Below, an RPG slammed into the tower's base. Concrete splintered. Johnson's teeth rattled. Commander, West Tower's taking hits, he barked into comms. Hold it. Sarah's voice snapped back. We lose that tower, we lose the flank. Johnson swallowed hard, bracing for another blast. At the east wall, Sarah's magazine clicked dry. She slammed another in, firing at silhouettes scrambling through the wire. The enemy was close now, too close. One fighter leapt the barrier, screaming, rifle raised. Sarah dropped him with 2 shots. Another landed right after, blade flashing. Nguyen tackled him, the 2 rolling in the dirt, grunting and cursing. Sarah kicked the attacker off, putting a bullet in his chest before pulling Nguyen to his feet. You good? She barked. Better than him, Nguyen panted, wiping blood from his cheek. Then Bishop's voice cracked through, Commander, casualty piles growing. Met tents overflowing. Sarah's chest tightened. Every second, the base bled more. And still the enemy pressed. Hours blurred together. The battle became a cycle of fire, reload, scream, repeat. By the time the eastern sky lightened with dawn, the ground outside the wire was littered with bodies and burning trucks. The enemy finally began to pull back, dragging their dead and wounded, retreating into the dunes. The base was silent except for the crackle of flames, the groans of the wounded, and the rasp of soldiers catching breath. Sarah staggered along the wall, her arms trembling from recoil, her throat raw from shouting. She scanned the field, smoke rising, carrion birds circling. They'd held. Barely. Johnson climbed down from the shattered tower, face streaked with soot. Ramirez stumbled beside him, still grinning through blood. Bishop was kneeling in the dirt, hands soaked as he tried to save yet another Marine. Nguyen leaned against a sandbag, his uniform torn, but alive. Sarah pulled her helmet off and wiped her face, staring at the sunrise. Victory tasted bitter. They had survived the night, but at a cost. Dozens of Marines lay dead. More wounded. And she knew the enemy wasn't finished. This wasn't over. This was only the beginning. Later, in the command tent, Major Harris slammed his fist on the table. They hit us harder than anyone expected. And they'll do it again. They won't stop until this valley belongs to them. Sarah stood across from him, shoulders squared despite the exhaustion in her bones. Then we don't wait for the next wave. We take the fight to them. Harris narrowed his eyes. You're suggesting an offensive? After last night? Yes, Sarah said, firm. They hit us because we cut their comms. Now we cut their supply lines. We track those convoys back to their base and burn it to the ground. If we don't, they'll just keep coming. The tent was silent for a long moment. Finally, Harris exhaled. You're insane. But you might be right. Sarah didn't flinch. I'm not asking permission. I'm asking for support. If we don't strike first, we'll be burying more men tomorrow. Harris studied her, then finally nodded. You'll have it. But this op, it better not just be another raid. You're going into the lion's den. Sarah's jaw tightened. Then we'll tear its throat out. That night, as her team cleaned weapons and restocked gear, Ramirez muttered, Commander, you realize you just volunteered us for suicide, right? Sarah smiled faintly. Not suicide. Preemption. Nguyen shook his head. She's right. If we don't cut the head off this snake, it'll just keep biting. Johnson said nothing, only loaded another magazine, eyes cold. Bishop looked up from his med kit, his voice quiet but steady. So what's the plan? Sarah's eyes hardened. We follow their trail. We find their stronghold. And we finish this. Once and for all. The team nodded, each face etched with fatigue, defiance, and a grim kind of trust. The desert wind howled outside, carrying the smell of smoke and blood. The war was far from over. But Sarah Donovan and her SEALs were already preparing to march into its heart. They moved before dawn, a slate-gray hush pressing over the desert as if the world itself had ducked its head to listen. Sarah Donovan's SEAL team, worn, hollow-eyed, but steady, slipped from FOB Bravo like ghosts. The convoy they'd found yesterday had left a scorched trail, broken axle hubs, scorched tarpaulin, scorch marks pointing back toward a canyon 3 valleys over. Satellite drone pics were noisy, but the pattern was old, trucks staged at night, dispersed by day, centralized at a compound tucked into a jag of broken rock that was easy to defend and hard to hit. They had 12 hours of daylight and a long stretch of decisions. Every plan now had to survive the real world. Dust, chance, the human element. Sarah briefed them in whispers. We go fast and light, she said. No weddings. No waiting. Johnson and Ramirez will sweep ahead for observation. Nguyen and Bishop will handle close recon and casualty extraction. I'll lead the breach team. We can't risk burning the convoy to see what else they've got. We need the stronghold. That's where their arms, their leadership, the money, everything, sleeps. Ramirez cracked a sliver of a grin, loading his rifle with calm fingers. So we sneak in, make some noise, then vanish. Not vanish, Sarah corrected. Leave nothing they can use. They moved like trained shadows down the flanks of the valley, single file along a dry stream bed. Dust devils twirled, larks called. The world was deceptively ordinary until it wasn't. Johnson's scope caught movement an hour in, 2 men atop a ridge, talking too carelessly, rifles set to rest. Ramirez clicked his tongue. The first frictionless kill was always the cruelest. No provocation, only necessity. They picked them off one by one as Johnson had taught them. Breath, sight, exhale. The men crumpled like puppets whose strings had been cut. Words were scarce, but respect thrummed in the air. They were professionals, and professionalism was a kind of intimacy. By midday the compound silhouette carved the skyline, a cluster of low, concrete structures, sandbags stacked like teeth, a satellite dish slumped on a battered tower. Vehicles, several intact, several burned, sat in tidy rows. Men moved below, carrying boxes and laughing in the way of people who thought they were safe. Sarah set a crude perimeter a kilometer out and watched through Johnson's optics. Movement, patterns, rotating shifts. A guard took his turn by the outer gate, his rifle resting on a crate. Another group argued near a torp that smelled of diesel. Little things revealed a schedule revealed vulnerability. Convoy supply timeline says they rest between 1300 and 1500, Johnson said, voice low. That's our window. 2 hours, Nguyen said. Enough to get in, secure primary cash, and get out if nothing goes sideways. Nothing goes sideways, Ramirez offered optimistically, then grimaced. Luck had been plenty in their favor before, they weren't counting on it mechanically. They cut through the scrub in a path that kept them out of sight. Wires, tripwires, small claymore placements evident to an informed eye. Bishop moved like a shadow as he checked for victims, his medic's eye stopping at each potential hazard. He found and marked 2 booby trap posts, neutralized them with a patience that had saved many lives before. They kept moving. They reached a service entrance on the western wall, a rusted gate, a padlock the size of a child's face. Nguyen produced a slim pry bar, Johnson had a small charge for the hinges. It should have been ugly and final. It was polite instead, the gate gave with a soft scream, and they slipped inside like maggots into flesh.